Kenniger. For some reason, I can't get that. And he is out of Wenatchee, but is representing our Department of Transportation for the state. So we will start with the Manson Community Council. It's all yours.
Hey, folks. I see a lot of people I recognize and a lot of new faces, which is wonderful. So I'm not going to take up any of your time. I just wanted to really thank you for being here. And as far as I'm concerned right now, this is already a win because we've got the county here. And, we've got some questions we just need to have answered and some clarification on some codes. So thank you for being here. And I just want to be courteous to them. And this is not a hostile meeting. And not as disparaging or hostile, so we're going to keep it really friendly, and we really appreciate that. So we'll give you guys 3 minutes at the end to ask your questions, and I'll let Carl explain the rest of that to you. But anyway, I just really wanted to say thank you from Manson Community Council for being here and taking the time. We appreciate it. They're going to do that.
Okay. So we're going to start with some questions from our Manson Community Council, and then you can respond to them. And when they're done, then we're going to allow people to ask your questions or make your comments. You'll have 3 minutes to do that. If your comment is the same as someone else that has just spoken, please come up and say what that guy said or what that lady said. And you don't need to repeat what they said unless you have something different to say. And so that way we can get as many people as we possibly can to make comments, if you want to make comments. We have a timer here, so at 1 minute remaining, if you're making comments, she's going to hold up a sign and wave at you, and so you can wrap it up. Again, we're just trying to make sure that we get as many people up that want to speak. All right? You guys want to start with your questions?
Good evening. I'm Kathy Blum, and I'm a member of the Manson Community Council and have been for the last 12 years. What we're here for is to ask the Planning Department to explain to us how a plan development application is permitted through the process at Chelan County Community Development. So that would be my first question to you, Dina, is could you give us a rough overview of how a plan development would go through the process for community development to get an application?
Certainly. Am I limited to the 3 minutes?
No, you're the star.
I can barely spit my name out in 3 minutes. So the plan development or platting process, so let me explain a little bit what a plan development is. A plan development is a plat with special provisions. So there's a section in our code that identifies what you can do with the plan development. You can ask for reduced setbacks, you can have increased density up to 200% if you meet certain criteria. So there are other provisions that you can ask for in a plan development. So the plan development goes hand in hand with the plat, and the plat is actually the subdivision that divides the land. Your plan development is what gives you your development criteria. So those two processes go hand in hand, and it's through a process we call quasi-judicial. So it does not go through the county commissioners. It does not go through the planning department for a decision. We merely process it, we facilitate the process, and it goes to your county hearing examiner. And part of that is, I'm sure this is going to come up, SEPA, is part of the review process also. So the plan development is an element of the platting process. So our county sheriff just showed up. Brian Witt. So did that answer the question about how that process works? It goes to a public hearing. Once it's decided upon by the hearing examiner, if he decides, yes, we're going to approve it, there will be conditions of approval, and those may have to do with SEPA, and they may have to do with just other development regulations that need to be addressed. Traffic sometimes can be addressed in SEPA. It sometimes is outside of the SEPA process, depends on whether or not it's codified. So once the decision is made with the hearing examiner, either to approve with conditions or deny, any appeal of that goes under a Land Use Petition Act, and it goes to court. So it's called a LUPA. So that process goes to court. And then from there, depending on how far through the court process it goes, it may be remanded back for consideration or to look at different issues. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think it did.
Okay.
And if other people have questions later in the program, they can ask
Certainly.
them of you. One of the reasons we also invited you here is to talk about Plan Development 22-179, Sundance Estates. The reason we struggle with this one is that there are resolutions that date back to 1996, 2012, and exhibitions of finding of fact that go with 2012, and other amendments and resolutions that go with this particular parcel of land. And so we're asking, how do we determine what codes this development will be determined under? Are they going to use the codes of 96, which are truly different and strange compared to what codes we have today? Is it going to impact the density? Where is that going to be chosen from? How the highway design is going to be? They were given a design in 96. Does it have to stay the same? Because traffic has certainly changed since then. So we would like to know how we could determine this process for this development so that we could give a fair statement to the county on how this community feels about this future development.
Okay, so great question. I'm going to start with, back in 1996, there was a zone change application that was accompanied by a plan development and a CUP. There was a whole bunch of other stuff, and it had to do with 3 parcels. And I wish we had a map up here. So the 3 parcels that were involved in that zone change, and in 1996, the county didn't really have, the zone change was the path for a plan development. So plan developments didn't come in until after we adopted the standards for growth management. So the zone change was the avenue back in 1996, and with that came development standards. So when the project was approved in 1996, there were certain development standards that went along with it. So you'll see there was another plat next door. Originally, they had asked for a mobile home park. There was a mini storage. So through the years, that has been amended. And so the 2 easternmost parcels, yes, eastern, pretty much have been developed now. So it's just this one remaining parcel that's 9.6 acres, I believe. Okay, so a zone change does not expire. A plat expires. Under the code in 2011, there was a plat that was approved alongside, well, I guess in recognition of the zone change. So it had to comply with the density and everything that the underlying zone change dictated. So that plat had preliminary approval in 2000, I think it was approved in 2012 by resolution. By the hearing examiner, I'm sorry. So that had, prior to 2014, there was a 7-year expiration on plats. So that means the plat would have expired in 2019 if they didn't come in and ask for an extension and shown substantial progress towards completion. They did not. So the plat kind of died a natural death in 2019. However, the underlying zone change and those development standards, including density, setbacks, there's another one, density, setbacks, it'll come to me in a minute. They all remain in place because that does not expire. It's one of the few we have left in the county, these old zone changes that have not been perfected yet. So the applicant came in and submitted a new application. That's this 22-179, and it's a plat. And the reason they're doing a plat and not a plan development is because they don't have to do the plan development. The underlying development standards are already stipulated in the zone change approval from 1996. Y'all staying with me? There's a lot of dates, a lot going on. So with that, I think it's really important to note, if we scrap everything, and we can't at this point, but if we scrapped everything and they started over, they could apply for a plan development under today's regulations and get 200% density, which is about 9.6 acres. If you do the math real quick. Got a calculator? Somebody pull out their phone. I'm gonna rattle off some numbers. 9.6 divided by 4 times 200%. That can't be right. No, I want actually the number. So 9.6 acres divided by 4 units per acre. Sorry, times that by 4. Times it, 4 units per acre. So 9.6 times 4. Sorry, I went the wrong direction. Times 200%. So 76.8, round that up to 77. So they could apply for a plan development with reduced setbacks and increased density to 77 lots if they could meet all of the criteria of the reviewing agencies for access, water sewer availability, all of the things that we are considering now are the same things that they would have to look at. The plat as submitted, I believe, is only 66 lots. The plat under the zone change, if you look at the underlying zone change, the density was 93 lots. So I'm just facilitating the process, but what they're requesting is far less now than what they were approved for in the 2011 application and what the zone change said that they could go up to if they could meet all of the other criteria of the agencies. I know there's going to be questions.
Hi. It was working. So along with all this are other stipulations, and that would be roadside, roads, sidewalks, curbs,
Okay, so I want to point out,
open space.
I've got the old resolution 2012 here that talks about, so the density, the lot width, which in the zone change was allowed to be less than 70 feet wide, and the setbacks and the lot coverage. So you've got lot coverage, lot width, setbacks, and density are the only 4 remaining factors under the zone change that they still get to enjoy as part of this application. Everything else comes under today's standards. Road standards, sewer standards, water standards. So everything else that's reviewing is being reviewed under today's codified regulations.
And that would include open space?
The open space, I'm sorry, that actually was included in here because the open space was at 25%, I believe. Sorry, open space was the 5th item. 25% open space required. And they're still required to put a fence in between the neighbor to the west. That still stands out. Well, 6-foot fence doesn't require a permit and an 8-foot fence does. So that's something that the hearing examiner would probably make a determination on.
Even the property next to a spring and road, there'll be some kind of a barrier for a spring.
And that's a really good thing to comment on regarding the impacts. But that's through the public comment process.
Okay, the community council have more?
So maybe you could talk about the comment process for this particular piece. When would be a good time for people to comment on this?
You can actually comment on this process all the way through the hearing examiner closing the public hearing. So we have a comment period that we put out. It's usually a 2-week period, and that's to get the comments so that we can forward those on to the agencies that really need to see what the comments are and potentially look further into issues. But the comment period doesn't officially close until after the hearing examiner has closed the public hearing. Because even if you submit comments through this entire process, you still have an opportunity to come and offer comment, either testimony or written comment at the public hearing.
So there was one more question, and it is on the...
I don't think there's going to be just one more.
Well, we'll see. And I can bring this up for you. It's the preliminary plat of Sundance.
Okay?
And it has under its notes,
I got it.
this project is located in with zone 523A, which was modified by PDA 2017.189. And we don't know what that is or what that means or how was it modified.
I think 2017-189 is, now, at the risk of calling somebody out, I know somebody in the audience that's going to know this answer, but I think that was a hearing examiner decision in 2017, and if I'm correct. It's really not applicable because the assumption was that when that zone change was amended in 2017, which did not affect this parcel, it affected the two to the east, that it reset the time frame for the plat, gave it another 5 years, and I had said no, they had to reapply. That it had expired on May 1st of 2019. Mm-hmm. Turn it on.
I'm Brian Patterson, and I guess I'm an honorary Manson Community Council member tonight. Because I'm going to get a little bit more into the weeds here. My background is I'm a retired environmental consultant, and so some of these things are familiar to me from my career in environmental consulting. My questions are going to be related to SEPA and traffic, and I've been asked to just ask one question in each category, so that's what I will do. So SEPA, as Dina mentioned, this is the State Environmental Policy Act, and this is the framework under which some of the review of this project takes place. And so my question, and I know a number of people have this question, so that's why I chose this one. The Department of Ecology's SEPA handbook notes that the abbreviated optional DNS review process, quote, is intended for minor projects that can be fully reviewed prior to issuing a notice of application. If the proposed project is more complex or environmental review cannot be completed within the time limits for the notice of application, the regular DNS process should be used. So again, for everybody here, the optional DNS process is a shorter process. It offers one public comment period under the SEPA part of this framework. And then the rest of the planning for this project takes place outside of view of the public. The regular DNS process would allow some initial public input, and then later on, after we learn more about the projects and the specifics of the project, there's a second opportunity for public comment. Okay, so all of that is to say that this guidance that's in the Department of Ecology's SEPA handbook is consistent with the regulatory requirements, but unfortunately it's been the case certainly over the last 5 years that I've been watching this, that the county almost always uses this abbreviated optional DNS process. including those that take place on contaminated land, which is a big issue here because of legacy orchard land contaminated with lead and arsenic. So my questions would be, how does the county justify limiting public participation in this way, which appears to clearly be at odds with Department of Ecology guidance and SEPA regulations, and shouldn't the SEPA requirements for public participation take precedence over expediency for developers?
Okay, so great question. And frankly, if I could do it over again, I probably would back up and not do the expedited process. But the reality of it is, it's the same 2-week comment period, and it goes to the same agencies. So it's expedited in that it combines the notice of application, the public notice, and the SEPA notification into the same document. But the review process is the same whether we separate it or not. And the expedited process, agreed, is designed for much smaller projects that are anticipating a DNS to be issued. However, as an example, contaminated soils wouldn't necessarily warrant a mitigated determination of non-significance. So we might have some other factors that are brought to light where we're going to look at this and say, hey, does it warrant a mitigated determination of non-significance, or potentially, you know, a step up is an EIS. But because it was an expedited process, I don't want anybody to assume that there's going to be a DNS issued right away. That's what this review process is for. No decision has been made on that.
Okay, and on the issue of traffic, according to county code, a traffic impact analysis is required for any project generating 200 average daily trips or 20 or more peak hour trips. And for example, this Sundance Estates project are above those thresholds. Historically, traffic impact analyses performed for projects in the Chelan Valley have relied on traffic counts taken during non-summer months, adjusted slightly upward. Adjusted slightly upward to account for increases due to summer tourism. Although appropriate WSDOT seasonal adjustment factors are readily available, traffic consultants fail to use them as they would produce higher results. As a result, these traffic studies invariably underestimate even existing vehicle backups at applicable intersections. So, I mean, we can see, you know, on the ground in the summer, the traffic impacts are already worse than what these studies are predicting. And the likely reason is because they're not using representative traffic counts during the summer season. So does the county have any qualified persons available to review submitted traffic impact analyses? That's the first question. And then could the county coordinate with WSDOT, and right at the end of the table there, to collect summertime traffic data for the Chelan Valley that would be required for use by project applicants?
I guess I'll start. Everyone can hear me? Okay. So I'm the director and the county engineer. So when you're referencing the code as far as county engineer, that's where it runs into. So the process that we utilize is requiring the traffic impact study. We'll normally have a scoping meeting and talk through where we need it, what time, everything else. The county only received the traffic impact study 2 weeks ago, and we didn't have any notice, so it's not actually completed yet. We are providing comments back to them and working through that process. That said, as far as when you're starting looking at a highway system, and I'm speaking out of turn here a little bit, but as far as using a seasonal growth factor, that when you're talking about just straight flow, that actually is an engineered accepted practice. Now, the factor that you utilize, that's something I'll defer to David here. But at the same time, when we're looking at it from a county perspective, what you're trying to do is find the traffic, but we're also not going to be hitting them saying, do your traffic analysis the 4th of July either. You know, because at the same time, you do need to be more representative of the overall traffic impact for the development and not, at the same time, not being overburdensome or bad for, I guess, for the applicant or being fair. I guess overburdensome was actually a wrong word, but being fair to the applicant. If we start getting into more technical type traffic impact studies, when we start talking intersections, roundabouts, and the like, that's when we actually lean on the DOT. They have the expertise and the staff in doing that and coordinating with them.
Yeah, and I'll add that we are right now in the process of trying to get some better handle on the seasonal variation accounts. Our planning department is going out, and I think they got counts in February. We're doing it again in May. We just finished them up, and we're going to get some more this summer so we can get a better handle on exactly what that variation is, because we're relying on numbers that are kind of spread out across the state for similar routes. But we don't have any permanent traffic recorders on this highway. So I thought you were, but I didn't want to assume.
Okay, thank you for our Manson Community Council. And now we're going to open this up for the public. Yes? Here we go. Mr. Doug England, you are going to be the first one up. Who's next? Terrelyn Frey. And I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Let me put this in here.
Thank you for being here. Just two quick, one an observation and one a question. The first, there is a development in town that is entirely out of compliance. It was out of compliance for about 10 years before I was ever involved. Through my 12 years, it was out of compliance, and it was attempted at least 3 different times to bring it back into compliance. It's a development that has kind of haunting similarities to this kind of development. It was supposed to be a new style of very small homes that were to go with the lot, not be moved, by one owner, and that owner had financial problems, had a background of concern, and he was no longer in the picture. The county treasurer mistakenly assigned parcel numbers to every single lot within that, and then those lots were sold. In light of that kind of experience, and with the idea that community development being so understaffed right now, what kind of assurances can the community have that we're not looking at the same thing all over again? The question I would have is that because of the fact that development has timed out and you're going back to the underlying zoning, why didn't that zoning disappear like all the other zones within the UGA and Manson disappeared when, through growth management, all the zoning inside our project went away?
All right, that's me. So good question, and for anybody that didn't hear it, what he's asking is why did the zone change criteria not go away when growth management was adopted in 2000? And the answer is because the zone change process itself was a legislative decision, and it runs with the land, not unlike a conditional use permit that would run with the land. Just because the rules change, that particular element does not go away. What assurances do you have that that won't happen, that it won't languish? We actually, as the facilitators of the project, we're going to run it through the process, plenty of opportunity for public comment. It'll go to the hearing examiner. He will make a decision. It'll go through the appeal process. And then if it is approved, they have 5 years to perfect it. If they don't perfect it, it goes away. But that underlying zone change, until there is a legislative action specifically to vacate that zone change, it stands, as does the density. But keep in mind, I just explained this a second ago, the current rules with a planned development in that zoning, the UR1 zoning in Manson, would permit higher density than what this application is for. There's a 200% bonus density if they add additional open space, and there's a chart in the code. If you get a standard 150, and you can go up to 200%. I was just reviewing it this afternoon. I knew this was going to come up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Frey, you're next, and after that is John and Chris Courtney.
My question was on the traffic, and where do they research it, or what part of Manson or Chelan, where do they test the traffic numbers?
I haven't looked at this one actually that close, but I think they did counts at the intersection that they're proposing to have.
Which intersection?
So it's near Wapato, well actually is it Wapato Lake Road? Yeah. So they have counts there at Wapato Lake Road. I think they have counts up on the county road that's on the back there. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, bear with us. Like I said, we got it 2 weeks ago, so. Yeah.
There you go.
So originally they had Wapato Lake Road at 150, Wall Street site access, and Summer Breeze Road at Swartout.
And when were those done? Or and are they the same roads that are going to be done in the next, when they redo it again? Summer, winter, fall, spring? And
Are you talking about the ones DOT is doing?
whoever's doing the traffic
Oh,
review.
okay. The ones that DOT is doing, I don't actually know the mileposts. They're doing multiple spots along the route, just so we can get, because it does change. The traffic volume's different closer to Manson. It gets probably heaviest near Boyd Road. So yeah, we're collecting counts at a number of the major points where it changes.
Okay.
Okay, the Courtneys are next, and then after that, Ms. Sorensen, Carrie wants to ask a question.
Okay, I have a few questions. The first one is the public meeting that's going to be scheduled. How far in advance do you notify the Manson community, and how do you do that?
If you become a party of record submitting comments during the public comment period, you'll go on a mailing list and you will receive notice for that. It'll also be published, and I can make a note so that it's published locally up here, but usually we use the Wenatchee World.
Right.
But it is published, and we always publish it 2 weeks, minimum of 2 weeks before the hearing, and there will be a staff report issued at least 2 weeks before the hearing also. We're a ways away from a hearing, so I don't want anybody to think it's going to creep up on you. We're still in the notice of application period. Agencies are still reviewing the studies that have been submitted. They may ask for additional information. We've got the SEPA process to go through. We're a ways away from a public hearing.
Okay. My next question is, when you talk about 9.6 acres and 66 homes, and you said you have to have 25% open space, and if you take 25% of 9.6, that leaves 7.2 acres. Now, my understanding in open space means there's no house on it, so that means technically the houses, those 66 houses are on 7.2 acres. So with the roads on it, how are we going to get smaller fire trucks here to get fire trucks in? Because I've seen other neighborhoods that are high density in the Seattle area, and it's pushing it. And I know, you know, we're in a fire-prone area, and we're all concerned about fire trucks easily getting to our home or homes that could later on burn to our home. So wondering about that.
So the fire marshal and your fire district have both been notified and invited to comment. So I would encourage you to, don't call the fire marshal, he's right next door to me. He knows to comment. But I don't have a whole lot of contact with the fire district. So if they don't comment, we're not going to be calling them and waiting for their comment. So if that's something that you are concerned about, make sure that your fire district knows that so that they do submit their comments.
Okay. And also, my understanding is Manson is getting to be bigger than Chelan with new homes and population. So now we're adding 66 homes. I mean, if this is accurate, how could the utilities such as sewer, primarily, because I assume all these houses are on sewer and not small of a lots, and water, I mean, how can we possibly have the infrastructure? When our infrastructure, the sewer system, was it, when it was updated, what was it, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, did they plan on the growth? So that those of us are people that had, so people that have on sewage now are going to be in trouble because they didn't plan on it and the new houses came in. So those are my questions.
Okay, so this project is within the service area of the Lake Chelan Reclamation District, and they have responded, and on both wastewater and domestic water have stated that it's within the service area and the district does have sufficient capacity to serve. And I was just reading a comment here. They cannot connect gray water roof drains or swimming pools to the system. But your local Lake Chelan Reclamation District has said they have capacity to serve. I don't know what their expansion plans are. I don't know how much beyond this development they have capacity for. They just said that they do have the capacity to serve this.
Okay, thank you very much. Now Ms. Sorensen, and after her will be Bill and Mary Sterling.
Thank you. So for those of you that don't know, our sewer actually runs all the way into Chelan and down through into Chelan Falls. So when that capacity is reached, we will have major issues on Highway 150. So that's just something to keep in mind as these developments are coming in, because a lot of the infrastructure is not there. So it is a major concern. It's something that the council's really concerned about. So my question for you is, so how do we change the legislature to get rid of the resolution 96-166 and get rid of that and the amendments that go with it? Obviously, our community isn't really in favor of that. I mean, am I kind of right? So that would be my question. And does it matter that we don't like it? And how do we change that? I just want to ask. I say things out loud.
Fair enough,
Okay.
fair enough. Doesn't anybody have any traffic questions? Jeez. Okay, so the process for basically extinguishing a zone change, an old zone change, is your legislative body. However, at this point, that ship has kind of sailed. We have an application in and it's vested. It's been paid for and it's been technically complete, so it is being reviewed. Keep in mind, I'm going to keep coming back to this. The zone change is not the issue here because absent the zone change, they can still apply for a plan development and get that density. It's all in the review process. If you're going to have objections to the development, your arguments have to be persuasive enough that the hearing examiner is going to either deny it or put conditions on that development to bring it into compliance. So I know that the zone change, because it's so old, is a concern, but our current code already allows for this. This is just another route.
Okay, next is Bill and Mary Sterling. No? Okay.
Would she
Then-
like to reserve her right at the end to? Okay.
All right.
Put a pin in that.
Next is DeLuca, Ken DeLuca. I believe
Del
you're the...
Duca?
Are you here?
Nope.
No? Pass? All right, how about Brad Frieder? Freder? Pass. Julie McCoy? And then after that will be Mary Sterling. You're coming up again. But we'll ask for others.
I have to remove this as I'm vertically challenged. Thank you for being here. My question relates to the SR 150, which is the only corridor that serves residents of the North Shore of Lake Chelan, both the community of Manson and the city of Chelan North Shore residents. A number of us are hugely concerned about the current level of traffic congestion on the SR 150. And as we look at these, yes, that's right. As we look at all of these applications coming in and all of this development going on, we are becoming rapidly alarmed. As I think it was Ms. Courtney alluded to earlier, this is a fire-prone area. And that route is our only method of evacuating the North Shore in the event of a catastrophic event. We are very worried, I'll speak for myself, I am very worried that there is not an alternate route out of town, so to speak, in the event that we need one. So my question is, under the county comprehensive plan, the county is required to collaborate with WSDOT and various other agencies, including the Forest Service, on road transportation improvements and developments. I feel that this is an issue that desperately needs to be addressed, and I am wondering what is being done to address that. Thank you.
Well, I'll start. I think there is an alternate route, the Boyd Loop Road. Why is that so funny?
Yeah.
I've driven that road.
That isn't a way out of town, because everything ties back into the 150 at some point. We really need a route that goes back up over Echo or somewhere. I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I won't suggest how it should be done, but somebody needs to give it some thought. And it needs to be done right away, because I'll tell you, the next thing that's going to happen is residents here are going to be screaming for a moratorium on development until that happens. So just be forewarned.
So,
Let me go first real quick. I think it's important to note when we talk about development, we're also talking about tourism and all of the wineries that don't require a permit that are under 1,500 square feet. All of that does not require public review, but it's contributing to your traffic problem. So we're in one hand looking at, we want to limit development. I'm paraphrasing here. We want to make sure that we are accommodating our growth appropriately with fixing the road system so that we can accommodate that. But in the other hand, we're saying we've got a tourism issue with no permitting requirements. There's no review process at all for a lot of that. So just food for thought, because you've got a couple of elements, and I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that this is just housing development, the creation of new lots that is creating this impact on our infrastructure.
You kind of hit most of it, but there is an actual, in our comprehensive plan, it's something called a transportation element. It's where we actually do the review, planning, and everything as far as future corridors, existing levels of service, everything else like that. I'll have to look into that. I could get back to you as far as what it actually states, but there are avenues there for us to actually look further into it. That said, if we're starting talking about a secondary access, whether it's dropping over and trying to drop into 97 or something like that, please recognize as far as cost and what we can actually do. So a lot of the improvements may be more related to how we can improve the existing system rather than look at brand new routes just due to the cost.
Okay. I don't think we have anybody else on the list, so if you would like to make a comment. Or,
just FYI, 4th of July traffic is all summer here. So you say that 4th of July traffic is what you can't base it on? That's total BS. On Highway 150, all summer long is 4th of July traffic. I live on Highway 150, trying to get out our driveway is nightmare. After, there's gonna be a T-bone accident because we're not used to people passing at 70 miles an hour. So you guys need to fix this. It's ridiculous.
okay, is there anybody else that would like to make a comment or ask a question of our guests here? Yes, sir. If you'd come on up, state your name and...
My name is Larry Young. I've lived here about 50 years. I just have a question about, this is a planned development now. Are they going to be able to have STRs in this development?
That is a great question, and I want to read you something from the amendment to the plan development, or the zone change. There was an underlying condition that still stands. Where's my glasses? The applicant is proposing that units may be used as vacation rentals which are subject to Chelan County Code at the time of permitting. We have an STR code in place, and it would be at the time that the residence was built or applied for through that process for an STR. So if the Manson urban growth area allows STRs and has availability, then they would be able to apply for it, but they would be a new one and they would go to the end of the line for review. We're a long ways away from that. But it's the plan development itself doesn't circumvent the STR code that was just adopted.
What conditions would have to be met in order for, I'm sure the county could do this, what would they have to do as far as limitations on sewer, fire protection, power, whatever, to put in a moratorium against, say, developments of less than 10,000 square feet per house?
Less than 10,000 square feet per house?
Yeah. No, I mean the lot size.
Oh, the lot size.
100 by 100,
okay.
Basically.
Okay, so keep in mind that if somebody came in with say we put in a moratorium, hypothetically, we put in a moratorium that there will be no development with lot sizes less than 12,500 square feet, which is the typical lot size if you need an on-site septic system. Somebody comes in and wants to do a plan development or a cluster subdivision where they've got smaller lots, 10,000 square feet. Say they come in, they want 6 lots. I would hazard to guess that the impacts of a residential development with 6 lots, tell me if I'm wrong, is going to be far less than a 1,500 square foot retail winery that requires no permitting at all. That's where we need to be really careful when we look at these. What exactly are we putting a moratorium on? Is it, what's the issue we're trying to solve?
Well, I guess the issue that we're trying to solve is the birdhouses. I mean, how many people here think that the lookout was a really good idea? Anybody? I don't know. I mean, I heard a story the other day, and catch me if I'm wrong here, but somebody said there were 2 permanent residents up there.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the lookout. When it was it Crystal View Estates? What was the original name of it? Granite Ridge, that's right, Granite Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it was developed and it had much larger lots and the economy crashed. They could not sell those lots, dropped them to $35,000, couldn't sell the lots. The lookout group came in, revamped it, made smaller lots, made it into that resort concept after another Washington resort, and we're selling those lots for $250,000 a year later.
Mm-hmm. I'm just asking, was
It's
that a good,
in the
was that a
city,
good
so
idea?
I'm glad I can push it off on them.
Yeah, well, was that a good idea? I mean, does that look good? Does that serve the purposes of the community? You know, I mean, when the whole thing is nothing but a bunch of STRs, and, you know, I've got 5 of them around my house, you know, and
I don't know what the review process was through the city of Chelan either, if it was designed originally as STRs. But I can say in the county, we do have adopted STR regulations, and this development would have to comply with those regulations. There's no waiver in the zone change application, the zone change approval for that component.
If you don't mind, I'll just add something. I was on the Planning Commission and also on the STR Task Force, and the code that is in place right now allows for a total of 9% of the housing stock in the Manson UGA, which this is in, to be STRs. They're approaching that, but they're not there now. But it also says that you have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to use the district use chart in place, which says only Tier 2 in this area, which is 12 people or less, and they have to be 200 feet apart from other STRs. Well, inside of this development, if they tried to make STRs out of some of these, if you just draw a circle, take the plat, draw a circle of 200 feet, you're going to find they could get about 6.
And that's if there's availability by the time they get to that point.
Yeah, that's right, if they haven't hit their 9%.
yeah. Well, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how the lead thing is solved, because, I mean, that stuff won't even grow in Orchard anymore, as far as I know. I mean, there's a lot of lead in there, and, you know, Aaron Brockovich is going to be up here, I think. Well, anyway, we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you. I think Ms. Sorensen has another question.
So if I'm reading the code right, and I might be wrong, so their application here states on the front they've checked plan development. And if you go to plan development and look at it, it says it's for long-term housing, full-time residents. So how can those be short-term rentals? Why would that be allowed?
The short-term rental code is another layer on top, and that's evaluated when they come in. However, they may have checked the plan development application, but the underlying zone change allows it, so they're really not, we're not applying that section of the code. It's a plat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any other comments or questions that you'd like to ask? Mr. Holzer.
Hi, everyone. My name's John Frocker, and I'm on the Community Council. First off, thank all of you for coming tonight, and thank you guys for coming out. I know you've all had a long day. I guess it's not so much a question as a comment, as I've been sitting here listening to this for the last hour. Every question that I had, you've answered. All three of you have answered. So it kind of shot that down. But what I'm hearing is, if we as a community want to restrict this current development and future developments, we need to produce persuasive arguments, correct? Because this has not gone in front of review yet.
I'm sorry?
This has not gone up for review yet.
Correct. We're
Right.
still in the
Right.
noticing period.
So all of you here tonight is a great start for us to develop those persuasive arguments. And I think that's what the outcome of this meeting needs to be. I'm not hearing that there's any red flag about what the developer is trying to do and is following within the limits of what the law is. Changing the law might not do it. I've also heard that. So what we really need to do is work together as a community to help slow these things down. I personally don't want to eliminate it. I think development is good, but it needs to be what's best for our community. And everyone here tonight is playing a role in that. So that's really all I had. I didn't really have a question. You answered everything that I could think of.
Thanks. And it is important. If you have comments, now is the time. Well, you can do it through the public hearing process, but now's the time to get your comments in. And just stating, I don't like it, we need less density, we need less traffic, that's not going to cut it. You need to back it up. You need to back it up with evidence that you have, because your applicant is doing traffic studies and your applicant is doing the extra studies that are required by the agencies. So your job through the review process would be to review the information that they are submitting and to submit comments that are relevant to it.
Okay, if you don't mind, I would like to ask a question, and you can time me for 3 minutes. In resolution number 2012-39, which I think you probably have.
I got it.
They reference, they say in here that therefore be it resolved that the commissioners hereby adopts the amendments to a plan development with the file number and a major subdivision plat application with the file number, with findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval as set forth in attachment Exhibit A. So does that mean that all the conditions in Exhibit A apply today?
The conditions of approval that apply to the amendment of the zone change, yes, they stand. However, if you look on page, going back here, conclusions of law. So you look at conditions of approval starting on page 8 of 12, and then you go to 9 of 12, and it says recommended conditions of approval for plat 2011-161. That has expired. The conditions of approval prior to that outline the open space, the lot coverage, the setbacks, and the density. Those are the elements that stand according to the zone change. The plat conditions have expired. That's what this process is. They have resubmitted a plat.
Okay, so the reason I ask is because it was in a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have assumed that a resolution would stand regardless.
Well, the resolution can't circumvent the state law that gave it 7 years for approval for the plat. They can't go around that.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
I was really nervous coming here. I appreciate you all being so kind.
Yeah, let me just also state that Miss Walter has, within the last 48 hours, traveled over enough time zones to go into double digits. So if she appears to be a little tired, she has a good reason. I did that for 19 years, and I know exactly how it feels. Doesn't feel good at all. Okay, Mr. Patterson has another question for us.
Okay, I'm going to get two in real quick. So one is, if I understand you correctly, this plat is required to have 25% open space?
No, minimum of 25. They were allowed to reduce it to 25, whereas if they were doing a regular plan development under today's regulations, it would be much higher than that. So the open space was stipulated in the zone change, so it's one of the development standards that stays with the zone change from 1996.
Okay, my reading of the rules is under the current rules, they would only have to have 10% open space for a planned development in the Manson UGA. So I'm quite confused, and maybe I'll have to follow up with you later on that.
Okay.
Because I calculate they've got about 7.2% open space right now. But okay, so I'm just going to go back and revisit SEPA again. So as you know, last year the Department of Ecology finalized this program to address potential lead and arsenic soil contamination in legacy orchard lands when they're developed. This program relies on the permitting agency, for example, in this case, Chelan County, to enforce any required remediation prior to occupancy of any structures built. The Department of Ecology has specifically requested that permitting agencies integrate this program into their permitting process. To what extent has this integration occurred in Chelan County, and how can the county assure the public that the required soil remediation will occur prior to building occupancy? So in other words, what is the inspection process that would go along with that?
Okay, so Department of Ecology has commented. I'm looking for it. They did comment, and they required that there be sampling done. And I was reading it on the way up to see what the sampling requirements were. But they have to do sampling. Once that sampling is done, then Department of Ecology will review the samples, and they will comment again on any improvement criteria or any remediation or mitigation that they're going to require. And that actually is outside of the regular standard plotting process and would be included in the SEPA analysis.
So in other words, this program applies not only under SEPA, it applies to all development. Anybody comes in for a building permit. So again, this was, as part of the model remedy document that was finalized in July of last year, they asked every permitting department out there in central and eastern Washington to integrate this into their permitting program. And I'm just wondering, okay, so piecemeal, under SEPA, when they comment, you know, yes, it gets addressed, although my question still pertains to the responsibility for compliance falls on the county, and Department of Ecology has told me that specifically. They don't want responsibility for compliance.
They never do.
So I'm just wondering, you know, is this becoming integrated into your process so that when a building permit application comes in, is that a line item on there? You know, has this been checked? Is it on legacy orchard land? If yes, you know, what is the remedy going, you know, what's going to happen next? Is the county going to require testing? Is the county, if they find concentrations above cleanup thresholds, will they require a model remedy type procedure to be followed?
Okay, so we don't have anything codified yet, but we have been in discussions with Department of Ecology, lots of meetings, of course, and Mike Caputa has been very kind to take the lead on that. He's with Natural Resources because I am just the interim director and I got my plate full. So he has agreed to take the lead on that. So they are in talks and negotiations on how to implement that in Chelan County. I would imagine down the road we're going to have something codified. We do not right now. But we're in the process of working through that legacy pesticide process.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Sterling, did you want to? All right.
So first of all, thank you for your information. It really answered a lot of questions, and thank you for your questions. But I think the bottom line, I mean, I live on the highway as well, and it is scary. It's gotten to the point that traveling on it is dangerous many times. And so, in my opinion, I feel like what we are asking, maybe I'm not asking for everybody, is how do we manage all of this? And you're right, the wineries, we forget tourism, the people that have businesses, that's how they stay alive, that's how they survive. So, and everybody wants to be here after they come here. So I think the question is, how do we move forward and keep everybody happy and safe? You know.
That's a great question, and I don't have an answer for you. I think that the growth is happening fast and furious right now. At some point, we have to do another review of our comprehensive plan, and that may include some amendments to the zoning codes to accommodate that. It's really important as residents of this area and the community council to be involved in these projects and be in contact with your county commissioners because they're your legislative body. So any changes have to go through the planning commission and then on to the county commissioners. So stay engaged.
Would you like to ask a question? Sure.
He'll bring you the microphone.
That's all right.
I just would like to ask the three of you to leave the addresses of like the Growth Management Hearings Board, the counties, the state offices that need to be responded to by these people in this room, because they can contact them and find out where they are in the process, what they need to do. And I've told several people here, I used to sit on the growth board. I'll say that. We got petitions from citizens that were better than from attorneys. They know what is wrong. I live on the highway also. We have a boat and a big truck. We're not going to get on, our boat launched this summer because we're not going to be able to get on the highway. And that's a fact. And there's a lot of us that are not going to get to do that. But if you could leave information for the group so that they can get it to us about how to contact the board. I now know that there is only one board, right, statewide?
Yes, there's just one Growth Management Hearings Board.
And that happened just right after I left, because I was on the Eastern Washington Growth Board. But anyway, it would be really helpful to these people to know who to write to and who to contact.
I can get that information to you. I don't have it with me, but the state agencies that we've notified are going to be the same agencies that you would want to have contact with. The Growth Management Hearings Board, if this was a comp plan amendment or a development regulation that was designed to implement the comprehensive plan, then the Growth Management Hearings Board would be able to hear it. But the land use actions go through the Land Use Petition Act. So they go through court. It's a LUPA appeal if there's an appeal. But I can carry the information for the state agencies that we are in contact with.
Thank you very much. Okay, last chance. I have a hand waving. Come on up, sir. Introduce yourself, and then we'll have another one.
Be gentle.
I will. I'm going to stand up all the way. My name is Sean Smith, and I have a question as far as has Sundance offered any information as to square footage of these homes that they're putting in 66 units? The square footage represents how many bedrooms could be there, and a bedroom, in my mind, represents how many cars could be in the development as well. And when you hear low or high density housing in a area like this where we pride ourselves on being a rural setting? What does that high density look like? Up, out, in, how many homes, and then how many bedrooms do those homes represent for cars, water, sewer, all the impact? Thank you.
I could hit that a little bit. When you're doing a traffic impact analysis, you're utilizing different engineering books like what you're going to get, like what he's asking for is a highway capacity manual. What you're reviewing there is the type of development under residential. Also, if you're going to have a multifamily home and so forth, they've already done statistically, forgive me, I'm an engineer, I can't talk. They've already done the analysis as far as what your average trips are, because this is more than just that one person coming in, you know, at the end of the day. We're talking garbage service, mail, and everything else. And so that's where you start getting into the residential. It's about 9.8. Yeah, 9.8 per parcel. Yeah, so there's per day. And so that's how that 9.8 actually comes into play. But there actually is a full manual. You can get your masters and all that stuff, but that's how you end up coming up with those numbers.
And the parking for the residential parking, off-street parking, will also be addressed through the review process through the hearing examiner also. So we have parking criteria, and it does address parking in this zone change amendment. The existing development requires 1 parking space per residential dwelling unit. That's actually a little less than they typically have 2-car garages, so they've already got 2 off-street parking places per residence. This is a platting process. They're not required up front to say how many bedrooms or bathrooms that they have or what their square footage is, but they may restrict the square footage either high or low through the codes, covenants, and restrictions, the CC&Rs for the development, and that's private. We do not regulate those. However, they have to observe the lot coverage restriction and the setbacks. So it's going to leave them limited amount of space if they have smaller lots to build a structure. And they have I think the height limit is 35 feet. So basically that's 2 stories. So, but we're not requiring footprints or home designs because this is a plat at this point. That comes through the building process if it's approved.
Okay. You, sir.
Hi, excuse me. Thanks for being here tonight. My name is Greg King, I'm a resident here. I just have a question on the traffic impact and the studies you mentioned. So you're saying that the applicant is doing his own traffic study, is that correct?
Yes, that's actually a requirement of the applicant to submit for their project. So once they submit the traffic impact study, that's when my department will receive it, start looking at it. We'll send it out to other agencies such as the DOT to provide comments. And then it sometimes can become an iterative, there's the engineer again, process in terms of back and forth and make sure that we get what the county can accept.
Does that process always happen with the county? You handle that all the time? Is that a requirement?
It depends on the size. So like say if you're going to have a 3-lot short plat, we're not going to require a traffic impact study, but something to this scale, we do require one.
Okay, so this Sundance development, they have to go through the county to do this, right?
Yes,
Yes?
and that's what was submitted 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Their initial draft.
Okay,
It goes to the state too because it borders SR 150.
got it, okay, all right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Gentleman coming up here.
Hello. Hi, I'm Matt Peters. I'm also a resident. Quick question. You said that, it could be worse. I mean, if this was a planned development, you could have more dwellings than what the plan is for 66. Is that correct?
Based on the calculations, if they got 200% density in a planned development overlay, Yes, they could ask for more lots. It doesn't mean that more lots would be approved because they still have to meet the criteria for setbacks, for the parking, for the density, for the water and sewer availability, the street widths. That's all part of the traffic study and the analysis, the internal circulation plan. So what they're asking for right now is less than if they filed for a planned development they could ask for. With that being said, it doesn't mean that's what they will be approved for. That's what this review process is for.
So there's no minimum square footage for the property itself, for a lot, within the plat?
If they were in just a flat-out UR1 district, there is a minimum lot size. But the underlying zone change,
right.
and even if absent the zone change, a planned development, they can ask for a reduced lot size. Usually only happens in areas where they've got adequate water and sewer availability. So they're not on an individual well, a Group A, Group B well, or septic systems.
Yeah, because early on you kind of made it sound like, well, you're actually fortunate that it's not more.
No, I'm sorry. I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, they're asking for a lot. 66 homes seems like a big development, but absent the zone change, a planned development anywhere in the UR1 zoning on 10 acres, they could yield more lots than 66.
It just doesn't make sense from the math standpoint, because if you take away the common space, the 25%, how are you going to get 60, I mean, do the math, you're getting what, 8 houses per acre? Is that right? 14? I mean, that's unbelievable.
And there's all sorts of variations. There's cottage homes, there's duplexes, there's, which they're not applying for. They're not applying for multifamily, but there's 0 lot lines. There's lots of different options for housing.
So I guess we are fortunate. Just kidding. Thank you.
It'll all be reviewed through this process, so.
Okay, we're going to do one last question, I think, from Ms. Sorensen.
So has Manson School District or the fire department weighed in on this project?
I thought I saw Fire 5, right? We're in Fire 5? Hold on just a second. I need my glasses again. You did? I was pretty sure I saw Fire District comments on here. I have not seen the school district comments, though. Yeah, I ran through them real quick, and I did not see the school district comments. Yes. Somebody knows what they said. Right. No, I was saying that the comments are in here, and I'll get them to you. And let me find them real quick, and I'll just read them to you. So hold on.
In the meantime, while she's looking for that, when we do adjourn, we're asking that you take your chairs and put them up here about as high as those over there, just to help us out to pick everything up a little bit. And just do be careful when you do that, but we're not wrapping it up quite yet. The other thing I'd like to do is to thank the North Shore Bible Church and Mr. Ray Dobbs, who made a donation so that we could have this good sound system and that everybody could hear.
Sorry. Okay, so the Fire 5 comments, nearest fire hydrant 70 feet away. Is fire flow adequate? No. So the developer will be required to bring the fire flow capacity to an acceptable level. Will additional fire hydrants be necessary? Yes. Are access and circulation adequate for emergency vehicles? Yes. For the 50-foot wide roads, the 20-foot 25-foot wide easement are not adequate with street parking. An easement being private will not have any enforcement for parking on the street. This plat should not be allowed till satisfactory plan for parking. So that's something, an agency comment that we will be looking at and potentially asking the applicant for a parking plan, how they're going to accommodate that. The current plan would cause blocking fire apparatus to a home fire, so they need to address that. Are the existing roads adequate for emergency vehicles? Yes. Are proposed roads adequate for emergency vehicles? Proposed roads, yes. Proposed easement lanes, no. And these comments are, when we get them all in, they are circulated or passed on to the developer because they need to address these things as part of the review process. Are alternate fire flow provisions acceptable or necessary? Alternative provisions may be necessary. Fire sprinklers are required for homes closer than 30-foot separation, so that's something to think about. Fire sprinklers are very expensive to install, so the developer has to really weigh what's the cost of putting these homes closer than 30 feet together if they both have to be sprinklered. You're adding at least $25,000 per home. Sprinkling is very expensive. It's even more expensive if you're retrofitting. So that was it. That was it for the fire district. So these comments then will go back to the applicant, and they will need to address that and how they're going to satisfy the fire district.
Thank you very much. Yes? Everyone would like to hear you.
The developer starts developing the property. Economy tanks, kind of like what happened up at Lookout. And I've known there's been some issues with other projects. So what happens then? What happens to the permit timing? You know, does that stay in place for somebody else? You know, what if it isn't, he starts,
right.
It's accepted,
okay.
And you kind of have dirt piles everywhere and maybe curbs, you know what I'm saying, an unfinished development, or so it looks crappy? Is there any, I mean, is there any protection, or is there anything that in regards to that?
Okay, so what happens is when a development is approved, if this is approved, the preliminary approval is referred to as entitlements. And in the development community, that is a saleable document. It happens all the time. I'm not saying that's what happens, but the approval goes with the land. It does not go with the developer. So if this is approved, the plat, there is a 5-year kind of sundown. They have 5 years to perfect the plat. If they show substantial progress and they get to that 5-year time frame and haven't finished, but they're within a stone's throw, they've got all the engineering done, they're right in the middle of construction, they can apply for a 1-year extension on that. So they do have to finish it or it expires. The plat expires. The zone change does not. Okay.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming and for your participation. I want to thank the Manson Community Council for hosting this. I want to thank Commissioner Overbay, Mr. Kittinger, Mr. Pearson, and Ms. Walters. They drove a long ways to get here. Please, thank you very much. And please help putting your chairs away.